Hello and welcome, my friends and viewers, to this week's episode of Legendlore, where I draw and talk about monsters, characters, gods, and other things from D&D 5th edition, all while giving a small but quickly digestible history about them. Together we'll go over their history within the game, how they utilize in the modern edition, and how you guys can utilize them in your own games. This week, we're going to take a bit of a break from Baldur's Gate in order to cover another one of D&D's classic monsters, that being the airborne manta ray coat pretenders from the Underdark known as Cloakers. Jumping right into it, Cloakers are aberrations that appear like large flying manta rays, with long wings that end in sharp claws. They also bear barbed, whipped-like tails, a pair of spider-like mandibles at the front of their heads, and 2 rows of serrated, shark-like teeth. However, when sleeping, dormant, or lying in wait on a hunt, Cloakers actually appear indistinguishable from large cloaks, with their mandibles and claws appearing as emulations of buttons or clasps, hence their name. In terms of their abilities, Cloakers were actually able of communicating with one another through a nearly inaudible subsonic moan, which could travel up to a maximum of 80 feet. This moan could be intensified to audibility by the Cloaker as a defense mechanism, causing those who hear it who are not Cloakers to suffer from fear, anxiety, or even nausea and paralysis in the worst cases. Cloakers were also intelligent enough to speak normally, but usually only in the languages of deep speech or undercommon. When Cloakers got old or powerful enough, they could manipulate shadows and conjure up to 3 illusory duplicates of itself. But as a whole, they were overall incredibly sensitive to light, which could both dispel these illusions and sometimes result in the Cloaker being blinded and unable to fly. Subtypes of different Cloakers include the Snow Cloaker, which is one that was fully white and known to hide in Arctic environments, and the Cloaker Lord, the largest and most powerful sort of Cloaker that could dominate other Cloakers to obey its commands. Now when it comes to average Cloaker behavior, they often functioned as ambush predators known for following or hiding from their prey until the moment to strike presented itself. Upon doing so, they would unfurl their wings and engulf their prey, using their tail to subdue the target further or defend itself from anyone who would try to intervene and remove the Cloaker. Sometimes this intervention would result in harm coming to the victim themselves, due to the person trying to aid them piercing the Cloaker's thin membrane. Cloakers would largely eat anything that it could get its hands on, able to subsist for long periods of time between meals like snakes, but often focusing primarily on a carnivorous diet. Beyond that, Cloakers were incredibly territorial and well known to hunt and kill anything that ventured into its area, often preferring to stay in one place rather than travel over far distances. In the rare case that a Cloaker chose to interact with other creatures besides other Cloakers, it would often be in the form of forcing creatures such as goblins, humans, darrow, drow, quaggoths, and other creatures into doing its bidding, which could range from them simply bringing them food to eat to worshipping them as some sort of divine entity. In that same respect, Cloakers were not developed enough to have any sort of god or religion of their own, while other aberrations such as illithids and aboleths did. However, they did have a concept of both popularity and ownership, with large colonies ranking each other based on aesthetics such as darker skin or sharpest tail or teeth, and keeping monsters such as dark mantles, lurkers, or even humanoids as pets. As such, this means that your PCs can attempt to try and deceive, reason with, or even ally with these creatures so long as they can provide them with something that they want, be it food, entertainment, stealing another Cloaker's pet, or taking down a rival Cloaker so as to remove them from the popularity pecking order. Cloakers and their ancestors were believed to have originated from the Far Realm or the Shadowfell, migrating to the Underdark upon arrival to the material plane, but still maintaining a foothold in both places and ruling over the lesser creatures within them. They were also capable of reproducing sexually, save for the Cloaker Lord, who could produce new Cloakers asexually via its age and mastery over Shadow. I try to imagine them peeling off like little tadpoles before growing into full Cloakers. In terms of magical components that your players can get from Cloakers, while I find nothing within the D&D or Forgotten Realms canon, these are a couple ideas that I've developed over the course of my research. With their focus on stealth and their ability to conjure illusions as they grow, Cloaker leather could be a very excellent component for illusion spell potions, magical cloaks, or even serving as tanned vellum for magical scrolls. It is, however, thought to be too thin to be used for anything like leather or hide armor. On the other hand, the organ that the Cloaker uses to conjure its moan can be salvaged and repurposed for a variety of different things, ranging from something as simple as a sort of duck collar for Cloakers, to maybe an instrument that allows the wielder to paralyze or nauseate their target in order to better take them down. The barbs of Cloaker tails can also make for excellent arrowheads or spikes on a Morningstar or other piercing weapon, or perhaps even a spiked shield. Now when it comes to combat, as previously mentioned, Cloakers are incredibly stealthy, and they focus on following and hiding from their prey before ambushing them. As such, your PC should never encounter a Cloaker just bumbling about in the open air without a care in the world. They would wait until a moment where the party was otherwise occupied, such as engaging in combat with another monster, climbing across some treacherous area or cliff, or settling down to camp for the night. It would be at this point that the Cloaker would strike the farthest or physically weakest of the group, wrapping around them tight and forcing them off to the side while muffling their cries for help. A skilled Cloaker could do this with the finesse and silence of an owl, and a group of Cloakers could coordinate and scoop up an entire party one by one before any of them has a chance to notice. With that said, give your Ranger, Rogue, or other high perception PCs a chance to notice that something's amiss, even if you've already gobbled up one of their casters, no problem. DM should always be a good sport. And speaking of groups of Cloakers, a swarm of these creatures cast against a thundering or dark landscape could be a great set piece for your party to gaze upon, having to sort of duck down and hide while watching as dozens or hundreds of these Cloakers soar across the sky. Here are a couple of example ways that I've used Cloakers in my games that you guys can steal for your own tables. With our previously mentioned Cloaker swarm in hand, maybe this group swoops down and attacks a village during a nighttime festival, only being spotted as their wings silhouette against the fireworks, giving the townspeople just enough time to panic, but not enough to run. From there, maybe the Cloakers snatch up a group of these villagers and bring them to some dark, deep cave in the mountains, and now your party must venture forth to see what the Cloakers have done with them. From here, you can have a boss monster like a Cloaker Lord or even an Aboleth or Mind Flayer that's controlling the Cloakers, having them snatch up humans on the surface to bring them for food, servants, and experimentation. For our second idea, Cloaker and Dagger, since Cloakers originate from both the Underdark, Shadowfell, and the Far Realm, perhaps you have an NPC who hails from one of these regions, such as a Shadar-kai Elf, Githyanki, Githzerai, Illithid, and etc. Maybe this PC is always identified in rumors and legends by a thin, distinctive leather cloak draped over their shoulders, flowing of its own accord. In reality, the cloak that they wear is actually a living Cloaker that has formed a pact with this NPC, traveling as a stealthy ally in exchange for food or something else, going limp and pretending to be an article of clothing in order to travel into areas where Cloakers may not exactly be welcome. Your party can definitely surround this NPC and think that they have them cornered and outnumbered, only for their Cloaker cape to come alive, wrap up, and make off with the cleric. It can definitely be one of those interesting gotcha moments for your party, and could also help you develop a particularly cool NPC for them to encounter. Now, in regards to using this for your players, if your DM is willing to entertain the idea, or if your game takes place predominantly in the Underdark or Shadowfell or the Far Realm, you could perhaps have your PCs encounter, entice, and train a Cloaker to serve as a flying mount, as opposed to the traditional ones that players always get like Pegasi, Giant Eagles, Rocks, and so on. If you, as a Dungeon Master, are not keen on having your PCs have that kind of power, you can instead have a Shadar-kai, Dark Elf, or Illithid villain riding atop a massive Cloaker as their introduction to the party. This can work very well for ranged Illithid spellcasters and Shadar-kai or Dark Elf Rangers and Druids, especially Gloomstalkers and Land Druids who focus on the Underdark. From a tactical standpoint, it could also be a lot more difficult for your melee fighters to get in range if a villain is riding atop a Cloaker hundreds of feet in the air. Then lastly, we have the Cloaker Curator, in which you have an NPC such as a rogue or wizard who is interested in the flora and fauna of the Underdark and thus has captured a Cloaker Lord, using it to breed normal Cloakers to do its bidding. These Cloakers can serve as spies, assassins, or kidnappers rather than just eating the prey that it wraps around. Perhaps this Cloaker breeder has formed a pact with a local thieves guild and has drummed up a great racket kidnapping nobles at night with faster-than-lightning Cloakers, only to ransom them back for a hefty sum of gold. Now, for Dungeon Masters or players who like to get persnickety with creating magic items, here are a couple that I recommend using as a basis before modifying them to seem more Cloaker-like. The Wings of Flying appearing like the flaps of a manta ray, or the Cloak of Displacement mimicking the Cloaker's ability to generate illusions are two of my personal favorites. And there's also a ton of other great things that you can do with these, such as the Nightfall Pearl, the Wraps of Dynamite being made out of Cloaker skin, the Circlet of Barbed Vision being made from Cloaker barbs, and so on and so forth. You get the idea. And finally, for our piece of homebrew content for the end of this video, we have two things, one magic item and a stat block that I'll include in the description below. First, we have the Cloaker Collar, which is a special whistle formed out of a solidified form of the Cloaker's moaning organ, made to emulate its sound for all who can hear it. It requires an action to use, and those within 120 feet who can hear the sound must make a DC 16 Constitution saving throw. Upon a failure, the user rolls 1d4, resulting in the targets being frightened on a 1-2, or poisoned on a 3-4. They suffer these conditions for a number of rounds equal to the user's Constitution modifier, but may make a new save at the end of their turns in order to end the effect. Upon a successful saving throw, they are immune to the effects of the Cloaker Collar for 24 hours. The first time that this item is used, the wielder does not have to roll a Constitution saving throw, but every time that they use it after, the person who is wielding the item also has to make the same Constitution saving throw as everybody else, unless they themselves are deafened or have some form of hearing protection. After a long rest, the item's first use without needing a save is reinstated. And then on top of that, we have a Cloaker stat block that I have personally restructured and also used in my games for years that I wanted to share with you guys. Tweaked over time to make full use out of 5th edition's action economy and very heavily informed by Matt Koval's action-oriented design, another video that I've linked in the description below. I hope you guys find it to be very useful for your games, and with that, that's our coverage of the Cloaker, everybody. I want to thank all of you guys for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share, comment, and subscribe, and press the little bell icon to be notified of future videos. If you guys want a chance to vote on the next video, please check out the community tab. And if you guys want to support the channel, please check out all of our social media, such as Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok, and also check out some of the cool stuff that we have on Redbubble and in print. Players and DMs, please let me know how you guys have encountered or used Cloakers in your games, and also let me know what kind of stuff you guys would like to see in upcoming videos. But until then, I'll see you guys next time.